Welcome to Pressure Points. Our topic is Tesla earnings, and there was several positive developments. And as of this recording, which is a couple hours after the conference call ended, the shares are up 12%, kind of at all-time highs in the after hours. And I like to focus on one item. Typically, that's just the point of the pressure point. And so I'm going to select the profitability piece, auto gross margins, X credits. That came in at 17.1%. The street was at 14.9%. There's a little bit of an asterisk on that number. And let me explain further, is that they mentioned that FSD revenue from Cybertruck and some summons had an impact in the quarter. And on the call, they said that that dynamic added $326 million to revenue in the quarter. Now, this is not a one-time revenue, so it's not appropriate just to back it all out. I would be surprised if they did recognize $326 million, because that effectively comes out to about 40,000 Cybertrucks, which is probably about what they've sold life to date. And I believe that they recognize that FSD revenue over several quarters, not just all at once. And so maybe there was something in the transcript. I've checked it several times. My colleague Brian Baker has checked it. That's what the transcript says. Again, they might have misspoken, but let's just take it at face value there, that there was $326 million in essentially 90% margin FSD revenue in the quarter. That would have changed that 17.1% down to 15.8% for the automotive margins X credits. Still nicely above where the street is at that versus that 14.9%. And I would just mention too, is I'm being like hypercritical on this metric. It's only fair to give Tesla credit for this revenue. This is part of their regular business. We're going to see more of this revenue coming in. And so don't think of this as a one-time event. But I just want to put some context that may be part of the reason why they guided for margins to decline sequentially from September to December, is because they're not going to see as much of this FSD revenue being recognized. But the reason why this one, about some close competitors for the pressure point, did achieve pressure point status was because it is near term. It is there's substance around that metric, whether it's negative or positive. And so I'm going to lead with that as the pressure point. Some other important topics, and I think that I would just take a step back and say, what's unique about this, the reason why the stock is up, is it had something for both the near-term investor and those long-term. And the near-term, I mentioned the profitability piece. They also guided the December deliveries to 10% year over year. That compares to the street, which was up 0.5%. And for 2025, Elon talked about 20 to 30% delivery growth. The street's at 15%. So really upbeat language. Some of that's come from this lower price vehicle, which it's sounding more and more it's going to be like a stripped down Model 3, and probably in the $30,000 to $35,000 range, not this $25,000 that gets talked about. So the second kind of near term positive was that was related to the delivery piece, and then the third is just the confidence related to what's happening with FSD. And of course, you have to take all of that with a grain of salt. But in the case of Elon, his commentary was that he's used the word extremely likely that they're going to kind of achieve this. That doesn't mean that it's going to be widely available by the end of 2025, but continues to be optimistic that they're making measurable progress against that goal. So those are the near term, I think, most important points around profitability and the revenue guidance. And then we'll jump to the long term. This, I'll call it the golden carrot for investors here, is his comment about how many units Cybercab could be. He dropped a doozer, 2 million units. Again, they're going to do about 2 million units this in calendar 25, or 2.2, but 2 million for Cybercab alone. It sounds like it's going to start to ramp kind of sometime in 2026, mid-2026, but should be at volume in 2027. And he said ultimately 4 million, which might be a few years away, 5 years away. But if they're doing 4 million units on Cybercab, I mean, we're almost getting back to Elon's 50% CAGR growth through the end of 2030. I mean, some of these numbers get kind of resurrected again with those big Cybercab numbers. And so I think that it's still a ways away, but again, the golden long-term opportunity for investors is to think potentially more about what Cybercab could ultimately mean. The one piece we didn't hear as much about is just Elon's ambitions related to politics. There were basically only 2 questions from the call came from kind of live analysts, and so that didn't come up relative to any of the ones that were more curated questions, like if Trump wins, what does that mean for his time at Tesla? So that's still an open-ended question. But in general, very positive quarter on profitability, deliveries, and where the product roadmap is going with that lower price vehicle coming sometime next year, and ultimately the Cybercab being more impactful in terms of units longer term. On behalf of Pressure Points, bye for now.